This is Your Anxiety Toolkit, episode number 124. Welcome to Your Anxiety Toolkit. I'm your host, Kimberly Quinlan. This podcast is fueled by three main goals. The first goal is to provide you with some extra tools to help you manage your anxiety. Second goal, to inspire you. Anxiety doesn't get to decide how you live your life. And number three, and I leave the best for last, is to provide you with one big, fat virtual hug. Because experiencing anxiety ain't easy. If that sounds good to you, let's go. Well, welcome back. Well, let me just first start by saying this is actually episode 124, and it's number 2 of recording it. I had pre-recorded this exact episode that I'm going to speak to you about, but as I was listening back to it, I could hear the absolute distress in my voice, and I was tremoring. I can tell I was having a really, really hard time. And as I listen back, I'm absolutely fine putting out massive vulnerability to you guys, and I'm absolutely fine with sharing with you my own experience, but there were so many incorrect statements, and I obviously was really struggling as I recorded that episode. So I thought I'd first share that with you because I always want to be absolutely authentic and really show up for you guys in a way where you can see me too, like me too, having a hard time, sometimes having a difficult time to articulate what's happening for me. But it's try number 2, and I'm still going to do it. I'm still super vulnerable. This is a topic that I don't feel super well versed in, and I'm always going to be certain to speak with you only on topics that I feel super, super skilled and trained in. But this episode is about me, and I'm not super trained in me. I'm not super educated in me because I'm doing this for the very first time. It's the very first time I have been Kimberly, so I'm going to cut myself a little break here. And maybe you could use that as some inspiration for yourself. It's the very first time you've ever been you, so you can't expect yourself to get it right the very first time. Okay, so number 1, thank you to all of you who participated in OCD Awareness Week last week. It was incredible to see everyone sharing on social media their hashtag Face Your Fears videos and posts. This was a hashtag program ran by the International OCD Foundation as a campaign where people could post themselves facing their fear. And I did a couple of them and I loved it. And it was just so, so great to see everybody join in. And now, unfortunately, International OCD Awareness Week, actually, it's not international, it's just OCD Awareness Week is over. But we shall continue with the awareness, and we shall continue with the advocacy, and we will continue to reach out and try to provide services for all the people of all the funds and all of the financial settings and countries they live in. That is one of the main missions of CBT School. So thank you for everyone who supports us. It means so much. Now, let's go over to the hard stuff, shall we? I have been meaning to, for some time, share with you an update on me and how I'm doing. I know on episode number 105, I shared with you an update or a beginning of my own medical struggles that I was having and mental health struggles of this year. It's been an incredibly difficult year over here for me, but also an incredible year of growth and awareness. And wow, how would I explain it? I'm humbled, if anything. I see myself clearer now. I feel like I had to cut the crap a lot. I'm still in this process of sort of cutting the crap, working through, digging through what is and is not real and what is and is not necessary and what is, bull crap, to put it nicely. Because I know a lot of you know, in early of the year, I was having some medical issues and they did find that I had a lesion in my brain. And then for the next 7 months, we chased that lesion. The lesion's name is Lionel. Lionel is the lesion in my left cerebellum. Doctors are scratching their heads still to what Lionel is. There are all these different ideas. Some of my friends think it's the genius gene. Some people think that it's, something that could become scary. Some people think it's things that could be there since I was a baby. Some people think it's from possibly hitting my head. Nobody can really figure it out. I've been to so many amazing doctors and have been prodded and poked in every area. It's been a ride, I'm not going to lie. But the thing that was the most difficult as I went through that process is as soon as they found Lionel, everyone kind of stopped addressing the symptoms that I actually presented with to begin with, because everyone was on this sort of wild goose chase to try and figure out what Lionel was and what Lionel would become. And I'm still in that process, to be honest with you. But all along this time, I was still struggling really, really, just so much. I know I shared with you, but, lightheaded, dizzy, swaying, nausea, headaches, couldn't function, couldn't stand up, was just struggling so much. And what was so hard for me is that I was sort of bullheaded, I'm not going to lie. You're seeing into the depths of Kimberly's brain now. I was bullheaded and completely stubborn at the idea of dropping back with my work. I insisted on still showing up for my clients, and I would go and see my clients because I love what I do, but it would take everything out of me. And by the time I got home, I had nothing left. I had just nothing left. And it was so hard. And I think back now and I just feel so sad that I went through that. But throughout this process, and as we got some clarity on what Lionel was, we finally got to actually look at the symptoms I was dealing with. And thankfully, they were able to figure it out. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm sharing all this with you. And the reason for that is coincidentally, maybe not a coincidence, maybe it's all meant to be, but October is what we would call Dysautonomia Awareness Week. And much to my surprise, that is what I am struggling with. So when I found out that October is Dysautonomia Week, I was pretty bummed out because I think of October as being OCD Awareness Week and BFRB Awareness Week. And here I am thinking, well, crap, I have to now spread awareness about this thing that I have, and I think it's the right thing to do. So I have what is called Postural Orthostatic Tachycardia Syndrome. They call it POTS for short. That is the acronym. And it is under the umbrella of what scientists and medical professionals call dysautonomia. Now, I'm going to share with you just a brief amount on this syndrome, mainly because I feel like I now owe it to my fellow POTS people to be an advocate for this as well. But postural orthostatic tachycardic syndrome, which we call POTS, it's a condition that ultimately affects your circulation or your blood flow. And this involves the autonomic nervous system, where this is where you regulate and control your bodily functions, mostly your blood flow, like they said. So what does this mean? I promise you after this, I'm going to share with you more about the mental health side of this. But basically, POTS is where your heart rate and your blood pressure, they don't really work well together. And when I stand up, the blood circulation should constrict and then send blood up to my brain. Mine does not. And so it basically means that I have a bunch of blood pooling in my leg, and that's why I get so dizzy and, you can faint, or you can almost faint, get incredibly lightheaded and cause all of the symptoms that I was explaining. It was perfect. Once they said it and once they sent me home with this massive packet, I kept saying to my husband, like, oh my God, I've been experiencing this my whole life. And I've been actually, under the misunderstanding that I was just sort of maybe over dramatic or being sensitive, or maybe I wasn't very good at handling discomfort. I used to have all of these moments where I thought I was so weak and so precious. And now I look back and I can see that this is something I've had my whole life and no one ever told me. And it was never that severe that I reached out and asked doctors to help me figure out what it was. But here I am now advocating for all things mental health and POTS. So that's what I'm here to do for the first part of this episode. If you want any information, do go and speak with your doctor, or I know that there are some really great websites out there about POTS. The one that I really loved was potsuk.org. And so if you're interested, you can absolutely check that out. But the thing I really wanted to speak with you guys about was the emotional roller coaster of having to accept, and I use the word accept on purpose, to accept a long-term problem, struggle, condition, syndrome, disorder, you could call it whatever you want. And I know a lot of you out there have what was similar to me, which is first, like once you get a diagnosis, whether you have a mental illness or a medical illness, is this like relief of like, oh, thank God, I'm not going crazy. Thank God. So I know what it is. Now I have a name for it. So I think that a lot of people feel that. But then once you have the relief, then you have to go into acceptance of this thing that you have. And that can be incredibly painful. It's a process. I always try my hardest with clients when I see them in my office is once I give them a diagnosis, I try to give them a little bit of time first before we start talking about what to do and how to do it. Try to give them a little bit of time because there's going to be so many emotions wrapped up in being given this information about yourself. And I'm going to be honest, I was overwhelmed with relief, but that quickly turned into sadness. And what I'm really proud of, I will say, is I was really careful to hold on to the sadness because I noticed that as I was feeling just so sad that I had been through all of this and that it had taken so long and that I'd had to feel so uncomfortable for so long. I was so sad about how this may affect my life as a mom and a human and a therapist and an entrepreneur, how this would impact my life. Such deep sadness. But what I did notice is it so quickly wanted that sadness, or maybe it was me, I should say. I kept shifting so quickly away from sadness into other emotions. Like I wanted to blame someone. I wanted someone to blame. And sometimes I would direct it to doctors or my family or, whatever. Like, why didn't someone pick this up earlier? Why didn't somebody know? I wanted to direct it to blame. I wanted to blame somebody. Sometimes I blamed myself. Right? Like, geez, Kimberly, you could have said something. You could have, you wasted so much time. I said, we can so quickly move into self-blame and guilt and self-shame. But I tried my hardest not to go there and just stay in the fact that this is sad and that I get to grieve. I get to be upset. I get to have all the feelings. I get to be angry. And I just gave myself time to have those feelings. And it was evident to me when I listened back to the first part of this episode when I first recorded it, is I could even then, and that only was recorded a week ago, it was just so raw and I hadn't realized how little I had processed this whole thing, right? So I first wanted to share with you that because I really want for you guys to be aware if you're dealing with anything similar, to just hold on to your sadness. Don't redirect it into just judgment and blame and self-hate. Just stay with the sadness. You deserve to be sad. You deserve to have a difficult time wrapping your head around this. And the truth is, some days I'm like on a mission. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I can handle this. And there are other days where I'm like, holy smokes, this changes everything. And this is a ton of hard work, and I'm sick of hard work. It's okay to feel like I'm just so sick of doing the hard work. And I know so many of you are out there in therapy, doing exposure and response prevention, or doing cognitive behavioral therapy, or working through your trauma. It's hard work, and you deserve to be exhausted, and you deserve to be able to share that and honor that and meet yourself wherever you're at. I have to do a ton of maintenance to keep myself well now. The good news is this is a syndrome that is highly manageable, just like a lot of the disorders I treat, right? OCD, social anxiety, panic disorder, depression. These are highly manageable disorders and conditions. None of them are, you can't snap your fingers and be better from them, but they're highly manageable, and that we need to celebrate. But let's just be real. Management is hard. Working on this stuff takes a ton of work. For me, it's, physical therapy, wearing compression socks, drinking ridiculous amounts of water, and consuming, you guys, you're going to crack up. One of the major treatments of maintenance for POTS is to consume massive degrees of salt. So you guys can imagine, what I do while I make these podcasts. I eat Swedish fish. You can just imagine me. I'm just like chewing on them as I organize it and draft it up. And now I have to eat like chips and pretzels and peanut butter and soups. And I'm just over here like eating massive degrees of salt, which is the opposite of what I've ever been taught by any medical professional. So, and there's medication for it too. So it's manageable, but it's a lot of work. I'm not going to lie. And I honor that. I know when I say that, I'll be open. When I say that, I have a significant amount of I would say it's shame come over me, because I immediately think, well, other people have it much worse, and you can't call that hard because other people have a way harder time at managing whatever they're going through. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to judge myself. I'm going to honor that it's hard. It's hard for me. It's a pain in the butt. And I'm going to keep trying to model to you guys that when you're handling something, you're managing something, we cannot judge ourselves, because that's not fair. It's an adversity, it's a struggle, it's a suffering, right? So we just have to keep meeting it. And once we get through that, we then move into what I call radical acceptance, which is, it is what it is. I'm going to do my best not to get stuck back and forward in why me, and what if this, and what if it wasn't this way, and what if I could have done this differently, and could I have prevented it? And I'm just trying to stay out of that, because it's, number one, it's not helpful. Number two, just the rumination in and of itself paints a shadow on me that I did something wrong, and I didn't. And I'm going to honor myself that way. So I hope that you can do something similar if you're going through something similar. It's not easy. I'm still sad about it. I'm still feeling sad, but I'm hopeful and I'm grateful. And what's interesting is, and this is just for me, you may not resonate with this at all, but I'm, in hindsight, kind of relieved, to be honest, because as much as I wish I never had to go through this, and I never had to have this, I wished I never had to get handed that thick pamphlet on how to manage this. I'm grateful for the fact that it forced me to take care of myself. And since then, just putting aside time every day to make sure I take care of me has been incredibly healing. Even though I hate wearing compression socks, when I put them on, I see them not as a symbol of like gross, yuck, discomfort, I hate them. I see them as a symbol of me doing what I need to do to take care of me. And I'm trying to rewire my brain to think that way and honor all the discomforts that I have as, a part of the human collective experience of suffering. I'm going through what I know a lot of other people are going through in different ways with different names and different disorders and syndromes and conditions. But we're all in this together, right? Somehow we're all in this together. So that's where I'm at. I'm, number one, doing what I feel is right, which is to continue to advocate. Again, now I have another acronym that I will be advocating for because I feel like that's the right thing to do. And I always am striving to show up for myself. I'm speaking to you into this microphone today, very vulnerable and very raw. So I hope you can be with me, and I'm grateful for you. Thank you for supporting me and giving me permission to show up pretty raw and vulnerable and a little unorganized and a little scattered, because the truth is, it's my stuff and it's still emotional, and I can't get on here and talk like a robot about it because there's still so much emotion wrapped up in it. And I'm sure for you guys, it's the same. And you have to give yourself permission for that. Give yourself permission to be on a journey of just getting better and getting used to sharing or talking or feeling or honoring and wherever it is that you're at. So, thank you. That is all I'm going to talk about today. It's ultimately about what it's like to radically accept a long-term condition, long-term struggle and suffering. And I'm figuring it out. I'll keep figuring it out. Maybe I won't figure it out, and that's okay too. I don't know. As I said to you, I've had many reflections here on the podcast. Not that I'm here to just talk about myself, but I hope that my reflections open up a little space for you guys to feel less alone. Because here's the thing, and I say this to my clients all the time, while someone may not be experiencing your exact set of symptoms, we can be certain that some other human is wrestling with the same themes, And so maybe that's the case. And if so, I really just hope that this is helpful to you in some way, or that you just enjoy listening to me go around in circles. All right. Thank you so much for your time. We don't have an I Did a Hard Thing segment this week because we just don't. This is my I Did a Hard Thing again. I'm processing it through. So thank you for allowing me to be with you guys as I do so. Sending you big love, and I will see you soon. It is a beautiful day to do the hard thing. Please hold that tight. You deserve the compassion and the respect of having all of the emotions as you do the hard thing, especially if your hard thing is a long-term thing. Or a short-term thing. We're here together. All right. Signing off. Please note that this podcast or any other resources from cbtschool.com should not replace professional mental health care. If you feel you would benefit, please reach out to a provider in your area. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for supporting cbtschool.com.